Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here to celebrate the opening of Another Justice, Us is Them, with Hank Willis Thomas, and For Freedoms. The exhibition brings together 12 artists from the For Freedoms network and explores notions of justice in a time of imbalance and a time of polarization. The artists, many of them are here today, are Zoe Buckman, Pamela Council, Jeremy Dennis, Jeffrey Gibson, Eric Gottesman, Christine Sun Kim, Muna Malik, Joiri Minaya, Koyol Sintli, Miranda Rivadeneira, Kambui Olu Jimmy, and Hank Willis Thomas, and Mary Watt. Some of them here are tonight, and we will be hearing from them shortly, which is going to be fabulous. And you will find their works in the galleries and also outside here on the grounds. There's a sculpture out here and at the Shinnecock Monuments on Sunrise Highway as well. I want to thank the parish trustees who are here today. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to thank the parish staff members for always their diligent commitment and integrity approach to the work that we do here. I want to also thank on behalf of the parish staff, the artists. I want to thank our donors and the folks that helped us underwrite the exhibition. Our sponsors for this exhibition, and thank you so much, are Catherine Farley and Jerry Spire, Alexandra Stanton and Sam Natapov, Mi-Young Lee and Neil Simpkins, Sandy and Stephen Pearlbinder, who are here in the first row, thank you, George Wells, Scott and Margot Seigler, Nina Jankovic, Caroline Hoffman, the Lupkin Bokutsi family, and Storm Asher from Superposition Gallery. Thank you, everyone, for helping us make this exhibition a reality. Thank you. We are also very grateful to Ben Brown Fine Arts in London, Hong Kong, and Palm Beach, to Jack Shaman Gallery in New York, to Pace Gallery in LA, and to Pippi Holsworth Gallery in London for their in-kind support. We also want to thank our next-door neighbors, the Watermill Center, for their partnership with us. They have invited Hank Willis Thomas and For Freedoms for a residency in September, starting on the 14th and continuing until October 7. And during that residency time, for the Inga Maren Otto Fellowship for the Visual Arts, Hank and his team will be collaborating with the parish, the Watermill Center, and For Freedoms in a series of public programs and town halls with members of the East End community. The exhibition, Another Justice, Us is Them, was organized by Corinne Ernie, our senior curator here at the Parish Museum, and with support of Brianna Hernandez, our curatorial fellow, who's also here today with us, and is curated by Hank Willis Thomas and Carly Fisher, both of them here also with us today. And now, what we have been waiting for, it is my absolute pleasure to invite the artists and the curators on stage so they can tell us a little bit more about the curatorial process and the exhibition and their work. Thank you, Corinne. You want to take it from here?
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this beautiful night in these great numbers. And I want to invite the artists to take the stage with me. And I think the fact that so many of you showed up is, I think, proof of Hank's ability and special talent to bring people together, people of all kinds of walks of life. So give him a big hand. So I just want to introduce the people on the stage. To my far right is Carly Fisher from For Freedoms. Yes. Pamela Council, one of the artists. Jory Minaya. I'm Corinne Ernie. Brianna Hernandez, our curatorial fellow, Hank. And Jeremy Dennis. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, Hank, I would like to begin with you. I think that's where it all started. And how did For Freedom come about? I know that it was funded in 2016. You guys have had quite a trajectory. You're now an organization and an LLC. And I also wanted to know what inspired you to make this exhibition, Another Justice Is Now, for the parish here in the Hamptons.
Wow, thank you so much. It's really, really great to be here. I can't believe how fortunate we all are to be able to share air inside and out together. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge how fortunate we all are, because a lot of people didn't get to do this for a long time, and some people will never get to do it again. And some people we love. And that's basically why I do what I do, because it's so easy for me and others to forget what's most important. And the past 3 years has been a really strong reminder of how interconnected we all are and how much we need to rely on one another, but also be disciplined within ourselves to take care of the people we love. And for me, art making is just a practice in calling myself to myself every day. And I love to collaborate because it's so much easier for me to remember that it's not all about me when I collaborate. And so everything that I do as a work of art is in some way a collaboration. And a lot of my collaborators, probably like 20 of them are here or more. So if you're here, raise your hand. Joe, Helen, Sam, Marquise, Rue, Wyatt, Manushka. So my mom, my number one collaborator and inspiration, Deborah Willis. And I guess I'll start there, that my mother, both of my parents, but especially my mother, has been helping me understand the world and so many other people through her research, through her fine art, her photography, and helping us to really understand that what we call American history is just one or maybe a few people's story. And my mother's first book, Black Photographers, 1840 to 1940, a biobibliography from 1986, was the first comprehensive book about Black photographers going back to the earliest days of photography. And when you think about what it meant to be a Black photographer in 1840, 2+ decades before the end of slavery formally, although we are still living in a slave era, as mass incarceration is government-sanctioned slavery, according to the Constitution, not me. But to think about what it meant to be a person of African descent at a time when it was illegal in most places to be able to read, to have access to even money in many places, to be on the cutting edge of science and technology as a photographer, meant that you had to be telling yourself a different narrative about who you were, what's important, and what the world could be. And so my work is very much an extension of that. And For Freedoms, which was born out of conversations with Eric Gottesman and Wyatt Gallery and Michelle Wu and many others, was really a place for us to think about how we could, if all art is political, if only because it will outlast us. And a lot of art has better care than most of us. So if all art is political, how do we start to talk about, how do we start to galvanize the power of art to talk about things that we really care about in a non-partisan way, in an anti-partisan way? Because at the end of the day, none of us can be defined by left wing or right wing. And in our hearts, we're probably all of the above on a given day. And I'm hoping that through our collaborations with incredible artists here who have been making work which is enlightening, which is daring, which is challenging, which is questioning, that we can broaden this conversation and invite more people into the discourse, because we believe great art asks questions and great design answers questions, and the quality of the questions does impact the quality of the answers. So I'm really grateful to the artists here and to the parish and to Corinne and to Watermill for making this all happen.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you. I would like to speak a little bit about your work and then talk about each artist's work. Your work is all the way on the far end, the large American flag, deconstructed American flags, so to speak. Can you talk a little bit about that work?
I don't want to talk. I just talked for mad long.
Do you want to go later? Should we start with someone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Joy Ree.
Thank you.
I admire your work. You mix performance, photography, and many other things in your work. Can you talk a little bit about the work that we're seeing here in the museum?
Yeah. I think someone was telling me about the mic. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks to the Parrish and for Freedoms for organizing this. I'm really honored to be part of this exhibition. The works that I'm showing here are two digital collages that are printed as photo that are part of a series called Divergences that are connected to a broader series called Containers that has all of those elements that you said, performance, photo. The ones that are here were originally commissioned for a larger installation at the Kemper Art Museum in Kansas City. And they continue my interest in the ideas of camouflage, opacity, in relation to identity and, performativity. Visually, there are two images of covered bodies that are kind of struggling with this fabric. And that's theme that runs through several of my works.
And sorry, the performer is yourself, right? You're performing and you're dressed in this camouflage outfits.
Yeah, so those are photos of the moments where I'm taking off these bodysuits that I've used in a longer series called Containers, where I'm using the bodysuits to explore the female figure in relation to landscape, in relation to idealized ideas of tropical space, in relation to being a person of color with an accent, Latinx person in the U.S., and dealing with the daily matters of that situation. In terms of like projections and misconceived notions and all of that. But this specific series is about the moment of taking off those bodysuits, and it's kind of frozen in that moment of struggle and agency and respite. Yeah.
Thank you, Joy.
Sure.
I'd like to move on to Pamela. Pamela, you're a native from Southampton, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm super grateful to be counted among these artists who have the opportunity to collaborate. And this is like an exceptional return for me. I think the Parrish is probably the first place I ever showed my work as a child. So it's a wonderful
in the student art exhibitions?
Yes.
Wow, we do that every year here. So you see young talent.
Yeah, I mean, really, really encouraged by the community that's built around this institution. I'm not feeling super well right now. It's been a season of that for me, and maybe a day before I got the call from Hank and Carly about participating in this show, my dad sent me some family records from Watermill and said, like, hey, I just discovered this like traumatic thing that happened in Watermill. I don't know what to do with it, but you'll figure it out. And I was like, what? You can't just text me that. And then literally like 36 hours later, Hank was like, hey, I'm doing this thing at the Parrish. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's how. Which happens a lot with my work. So I decided to really confront my own capacity and my own sense of labor and a sort of familial sense of labor and what we're able to hold in our bodies. And my work that you see here is part of two series, one called Relief, where I'm thinking a lot about my history of working in factories. I worked for some time in the sneaker industry and producing these outsoles for shoes. And the other work is called Let Go-Bys Be Go-Bys. We Never Dreamt of Labor. And Let Go-Bys Be Go-Bys is this phrase that, again, is passed down from my dad. And it's like an attempt to say, let bygones be bygones, from an illiterate person who worked in the potato fields a mile away, which is what I come from. So I took these conveyor belt rollers and dressed them up because I always had this story about the potato graders in my mind. And I had this like vision of it being a cotton club in this fantastic place because that's where all the gossip happened in town. So my grandmother always had these stories that were like, oh, this happened at the potato grader, that happened at the potato grader. So in my mind, it was like the place to be if you were an adult. In my mind, it was fun. And it wasn't, of course, we know that. But so I've been thinking through these works that reimagine our relationship to labor and offer some sort of relief for it as well.
Thank you, Pamela. It's wonderful that your participation is sort of coming full circle for you coming back to the Hamptons. And thank you for joining us, even you're not feeling so well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to move to our third artist who's joined us, Jeremy Dennis. Jeremy, we've worked together before. You're a Parrish collection artist, and I would like to invite you to talk more about your work, which actually you can see as you leave the Hamptons and probably get stuck in traffic. And you will see these tall ad spaces, these digital billboards, which are owned by the Shinnecock Nation, and maybe you want to talk more about that and your own work on the monuments.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Corinne, and good to see everyone. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to speak as a Shinnecock artist. I'm a photographer and portrait photographer mostly, but for the Four Freedoms project and the Land Back theme, I was really thinking about the placement of the Shinnecock Monuments, how prominent they are, how proud we are as Shinnecock people to have them on land that people didn't realize was ours. And those same people often don't realize that we're still here as a people. And we just have this very basic request to New York State, the New York governor, to return this body of land known today as the Shinnecock Hills, which was taken from us in 1859. And so I thank the curators, I thank the parish, thank everyone who allowed me to project this image on the Shinnecock monuments, because it's up to one person, the New York State governor, to make this amazing change possible. I think this is just something that should be done. But until that point is actually realized, we're working with individuals. We actually had a lot of success this past couple of years through Sugarloaf Hill being purchased and preserved through the, I think that is amazing.
It's actually the anniversary is today of returning the Sugarloaf, right? Yeah.
So we're really grateful for this, but it took $5 million. It took a sort of an anonymous donor to make it possible. And it's this kind of half-acre body of land out of over 4,000 acres. So we're really just trying to regain something that really belongs to us in ways that we as good neighbors kind of deserve. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be part of this exhibit and make art, make political art, make our voices heard. And so I think that I'm just so grateful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And just so for everybody, our partnership with the Watermill Center has been going on for several years, and they have invited For Freedoms to be in residency this fall, where we're going to go deeper into the themes that all of these artists are addressing. I don't know, Carly and Brianna, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about those issues or what will happen at the Watermill Center in the fall.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Yeah, we are so grateful that this exhibition is actually a continuation of a partnership that happens between these two institutions annually. And typically, artists are in residence at the Watermill Center and they make art for an exhibition at the Parrish. I'm sure many of you saw Tamashi Jackson's beautiful show last year. And at Four Freedoms, we are always interested in thinking about subverting things the way they are and finding ways to reimagine them, which, is something that is inspired by the work of artists, which is to look at the world and imagine something that doesn't exist in it yet and bring it to life, which is also what we hope for our politics, that we can look at the world and imagine something that doesn't exist yet and bring it to life. So we really took that spirit to this residency and exhibition pairing, and rather than following the model as it has existed, we decided to subvert it, and we are using this exhibition to bring together the work of these incredible artists. And then the residency will be a moment of deepening, and we are giving artists the opportunity to be in residence, to make work, to take a moment for rest if that's what their practice and their life needs, to take a moment for research if that's what they need in this moment. And then each week of this residency will culminate in a public program of some kind that deals with ideas of justice. And, at Four Freedoms, we began with the initial FDR Four Freedoms and these iconic Norman Rockwell paintings, and then reimagine what these 4 FOUR freedoms could be, to listening, healing, justice, and awakening. And this year has really been about justice. And often when we hear that word, we think criminal legal justice and carceral justice. But justice happens every day and in so many facets of the ways in which we live alongside one another. It's in our interpersonal relationships, and it's in every way that we engage in a civic society. So these 4 public programs will be about these 4 ideas of justice. There will be one that is really inspired by the Four Freedoms, Another Justice campaign, which will be an art-making opportunity for all ages. There will be another that is about land back and the work of Indigenous artists, both with the Indian and Indigena collectives actually making a land back campaign, but also the sort of larger legacy of land back as a movement. There will be an opportunity to work with local students around carceral justice. And then finally, a moment to think about gender justice, which takes so many forms and which you can see on view in the galleries. So that'll be both an opportunity for some of the artists in the show to show up, and also an opportunity for other folks from the Four Freedoms Network, who are deep collaborators of ours, to actually engage in this exhibition and residency in a deeper and more meaningful way. So we hope you'll be there.
Thank you, Carly. Come back in the fall. I think the show couldn't be more timely with everything that we're hearing right now in the January 6th hearing. I think we all are listening to that in disbelief. And Brianna and I just had a conversation today about one of the artists who couldn't join us tonight and his work, Kambuya Lujimi. And maybe, Brianna, you want to talk a bit about what struck you in his work?
Yes, thank you so much. First, I just want to say thank you to Hank and Carly and Corinne for the opportunity to support this exhibition. As an artist and a curator, I've been a fan of Hank for so long, so this is an absolute dream, and each of the artists chosen has really powerful and thoughtful work. And one of the things we were talking about with Kambuya's work is the way that he does play with that subversion through his own craftsmanship, as well as these politics and stories that we hear. His piece in Gallery 8 is titled Redshift, and it's a play on this actually physics term. The simplified version is looking at the difference between the actual state of an object versus the perceived state, and it gets into wavelengths and all these other reasons why that there's a difference between those things. But he uses it to talk about the difference between the mythologies that we create around violence and what the actual history is. And if we look at who perpetuates violence, who commits it, and on whose behalf, it really changes these narratives around who is typically seen as violent, who is typically seen as a perpetrator, and also who is held accountable for that. And so he has these gorgeous portraits of presidential assassins, some of them successful, some of them not, as well as portraits of 8 senators who voted to overturn the election results, paired with 3 drawings of the January 6th riot at the Capitol building. And the way that he plays with their facial expressions, his line work, and how they're mirroring each other in the space, it really shows you the difference about how some of these people are perceived and how we normally think they would be. You'll see that these people who are normally supposed to look up to and revere in politics, that are leaders, they're almost a little creepy. And then on the other hand, these assassins who have attempted or actually killed someone, they're treated very delicately. They're shown in these proud moments, and they're a bit alluring. So it's a really thoughtful installation that's part of an ongoing series of his. So I encourage you to take some time, spend as much time with each portrait as you can, and then look up and around at the way that it connects with the sight lines into the room where Hank's work is, into the room where his neighbor Eric Godesman is. Because as we were installing, we realized that even though all these artists approach their work in such unique ways, there's very strong threads between how their themes connect and how they build on each other. So really encouraging you to take those moments and pauses to reflect and really listen to how they're treating the material to send that message.
Thank you, Brianna. Very well put. Hank, I'll give you the last word.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for choosing to participate. And thank you for all of the work that you've done throughout generations, Pamela, to make moments like this possible. And thank you all for coming tonight. If there's anything that I hope that you're left with is this reminder that justice is there for us to make in any moment, and for us to think creatively about how we can make justice something that is actually serving its higher intention, and that art is just one way that we can pose those questions and introduce that conversation, but the way that we choose to live our lives in general is another daily creative practice. And I just hope that we can have conversations and support organizations like these so that they can make more space for artists to open our minds and hearts.
Thank you, Hank, and thank you to all of the artists. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Oh, yes, we have tours coming up throughout the summer. Next week, actually, Brianna will give a tour on next Friday, 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So come register online. Thank you. Thank you.